Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome to Ultimate General Civil War. I'll have two videos on this. This will be my general thoughts and impressions about the game, as well as explaining basic gameplay mechanics, and the next one will be the full gameplay battle of Shiloh. That is like an hour-plus battle, so I figured I'd split them into two. So, what is this? Well, it's a continuation of Ultimate General Gettysburg, which was created by the now rather infamous creator of the Darth mod, Darth himself, a pretty damn good modder, and turns out he has got some talent for designing games as well. Ultimate General Gettysburg, of course, was a single battle, the Battle of Gettysburg, while this is the entire Civil War. In the early access, you have about half of the war, which is already a lot, trust me. This game is pretty goddamn huge when it comes down to it. Even more so as you have access to two campaigns. You have, of course, the Union and the Confederates. And when you're creating a campaign, you get to pick certain bonuses. For example, a tactician gives you army organization or reconnaissance, so that's big strategist. And cavalry and army, for example. And then you choose between the Confederate States or the United States. Personally, I'm more of a Confederate man, which is why I'm saving them for the full complete game and currently playing the Union. These are actually quite important, as these are very, very good bonuses that you get from picking these. Once you get into the game proper, we'll load up a save game, you can outfit your troops to a fairly considerable degree. You start out with a single corps and a single division, which you can then eventually grow through, again, some stats here. So let's begin with this page here. These are your career points. You get them from successfully winning battles. You get more from winning larger battles, and you may lose reputation from losing battles. Now, reputation is essentially how much your government trusts you, and it's also a form of currency that can be used to get special cool stuff. For example, I can currently requisition money, troops, or a couple of commanders. You can also requisition weapons and artillery here. Now, the career points, which you gain as you level up, can be divided into politics, which increases the monetary benefits that you gain from winning a fight. Essentially, the more of politics you have, the bigger the payout at the end of a battle is. Economy lets you buy gear cheaper. Medicine gives you some replenishment to troops. Honestly, this one needs a huge buff, because currently it's just not really worth it. 2% restored is nothing, and even with you gotta sink so much points into this for it to be even remotely worthwhile. Points that you're way better off spending in politics, economy, or training, so this needs a buff in my opinion. Training decreases the cost of buying veterans, which is pretty important since that will allow you to keep your units at top fighting strength. Army organization determines the size of the army and the size of individual brigades. Logistics determine the amount of extra ammunition that a unit carries with it, which can be useful but not decisive, although later in the game you certainly might want some. And reconnaissance, which determines the amount of information you have of the enemy before a battle, which is very useful. At the very least, it'll tell you how badly fucked you are. Now, you can also, of course, purchase commanders, and you can also have your commanders be wounded or even killed, although killed is fairly rare. You also have an armory with all kinds of different weapons. These depend both on how far in the campaign you are and which side you're fighting as. For example, for the good old-fashioned Union soldiers, the Palmetto is their first proper weapon upgrade, while for the Confederates, it's usually the Mississippi or the MJ&G, and both sides have access to the Lorenz. While some more later stuff, like for example the Henry rifle, is only available to the Confederacy as an infantry weapon. However, the Union gets access to better sniper rifles and the Colt model. So on, there are some differences there. And you can also capture enemies' equipment. Now, I haven't yet entirely figured out how that works, but it looks as if you will capture the equipment of a unit that surrenders. You don't seem to get a whole lot from just killing people on the battlefield and taking their stuff out of the dirt, which presumably it's damage, etc. Troops bring their weapons with them, so generally speaking you need to capture stuff to get it. But still, it's a pretty cool mechanic, which I really like, because it will allow, or potentially allow you, to equip your troops with really cool shit. For example, the Spencer rifles. Now, the Spencer repeating rifle is pretty damn valuable, pretty damn rare. However, in the last battle, I managed to acquire 287 of these wonderful little things, which I now have equipped the Deltas with. they will be my special forces trying to sneak their way around enemies' fronts. So, the units, of course, are divided into brigades. You've got a bit of a variety in them. You've got infantry, artillery, cavalry, and skirmishers, and you can also give them different weapons. For example, my primary mainstay units that I'm currently equipping mostly with veteran troops are equipped with Springfield M1855s, which give them a hell of a lot better ranged performance, while my primary assault brigade, Hill's Brigade here, are equipped with the Palmetto M1842s, with an improved bayonet, which are slightly better than the standard Springfield. It's not a whole lot better at shooting things, but it is a hell of a lot better at stabbing things. And I've also formed several corps of militia soldiers here, which they're not technically militia, that's just what I called them, because they're essentially been made just to use up as much of my gear and troops as possible in front of the major battle to come. So they're equipped with whatever I had at hand, some excess Springfields, and some captured reboard farmer muskets. Pretty damn shitty weapon that I got from the Confederates. So they're basically just stopgap troops, but trust me, you're gonna want them in the upcoming battle. Now, you have, as I mentioned, quite a bit of selections, which of course varies from infantry to skirmishes, etc. For example, the cavalry have mostly access to ranged weapons that are fairly rapid firing, carbines, etc. for skirmishing roles, or melee weapons and what essentially amounts to pistols that are used for, well, fighting in melee combat. Currently they're equipped with the basic gear, the Palmetto M1842 flintlock pistol, because primarily these troops are not used to break battle lines or anything, they're mostly used to take care of fleeing troops and to support my own battle lines against enemy assaults. Generally speaking, around this time of history, heavy cavalry, as we knew it, was dying out. They weren't particularly useful anymore, due to the simple fact that they were up against massed ranks of infantry with muskets and bayonets are essentially just spears at that point, and spears are pretty good against cavalry. You can of course also make skirmishing cavalry, which are Pendragoon's light horse here, which are equipped with Sharp Model 1859 carbines with a pretty good reload rate, primarily used for outflanking the enemy and pouring fire into their flanks. And then, of course, the artillery, the pride of the Union. You get access to rifled 10-pounders and other such weapons, like the fearsome 20-pounder Parrot, which is a pretty goddamn horrifying weapon. You also get access to some pretty rare shit like the 12-pounder Withwood. Unfortunately, there's no such thing as Gatling guns here at the moment, even though they did exist at the time, and I believe a Union general did purchase a few of them, but I'm not entirely sure they would even work within the engine, honestly, since pretty much everything works off a salvo fire system, but that would have been awesome, wouldn't it? Now, an additional use for all of this, of course, after each battle you gain cash, which is used for buying new units and buying equipment, and also manpower, which of course is used to staff those units. You also have reputation, which you can use to buy special favors, like for example money, extra recruits, specialized commanders, weapons, and artillery. It's very, very powerful, as it will allow you to gain, for example, 2,000 new rifles, which means you don't have to pay an absolute buttload of money for those rifles, giving you more money to spend on veteran reinforcements. There are two choices, of course, veteran and rookie. Rookie are cheap. They cost virtually nothing. In fact, they cost literally nothing other than the expense of the weapon. But veterans will retain these stats: command, efficiency, morale, stamina, firearms, and melee. All of these start out at a fairly abysmal level, as you can see here, which is just a basic unit, and level up as they do that particular action. For example, to give them increased melee, they're going to have to fight in close quarters combat. To get firearms, they need to be getting kills with ranged weapons, etc. Fairly self-explanatory, really. Thusly, you have your supplies, which is how much supplies your supply wagon is dragging into battle. Each unit, of course, carries with it its own supplies, but the battle wagon is going to be very important in larger-scale battles, as you will be using a lot of ammunition. Furthermore, the units have, of course, a leader. The rank of that leader depends upon how many troops he can command and how good he is at it. For example, a major is not particularly good at commanding large amounts of troops. He will have a fairly considerable negative modifier to commanding too many units. For example, this guy here has an efficiency minus compared to this guy, because he is of a higher rank and can therefore command more troops. And even he is not perfect commanding 2,000 troops. For that, you need even hires like colonels, and eventually you get brigadier generals, major generals, and all the way upwards. There also depends on what they can command. For example, a major general could command a division, or a corps even. And at that level, they all can also level up. Now, the units level up individually. For example, this unit has discipline training, and they can get up to 3 traits that vary a little bit from the various types. For example, the 10-pounders have access to logistics, which increases ammunition by 50% and efficiency by 5, while the skirmishers get their own tree, and the cavalry also get their own. Now, they're not all unique. Usually there's only one unique choice per one, so you get 2 to 3 choices for level 1, 2, and 3, etc. The commander himself does not get any traits although, they do get them at the corps level. So, for example, this guy is giving these people under his command, the entire corps, 10% extra XP. You've got some other choices, like, for example, extra ammunition or extra movement speed as well, and they also have 3 levels. So it's got a fair bit of progression, and I really, really like that. It makes you a bit more attached to your units, and it makes the special units special. The Ironsides are special because they're good at ranged combat. They're solid fighters. The Scottish Brigade are also special because of the same thing. Hill's Brigade is a special unit to me because they're my melee specialists, you know? You gain a certain attachment to your troops, which is really, really, really cool. It also, of course, means that you don't want to take that many casualties because you're punished financially. If you take heavy casualties in one of your elite units, it's gonna sting your wallet pretty damn badly, to say the absolute bloody least. Now, as for the game itself, the basic gameplay is pretty much the same as Ultimate General Gettysburg, although refined. You're still going to be trying to break enemy line infantry with flanking fire, etc., but everything is just working a little bit better, a little bit more smoothly. The increased number of troops does occasionally get a bit silly. It can be quite annoying wrestling your troops into position occasionally, as they, especially in the case of artillery will point towards the nearest enemy that they can see and is in range, and you can't make them not do this, which is quite infuriating when you want them to be pointing towards the axis of the enemy's primary attack, but the battery is busy turning towards a bunch of cavalry on the other side of the fucking map that present no threat to them. The units also have a bit of a problem stacking up against each other. They will always want to form one long consecutive line, which means that if you're trying to move a large offensive forward, many of the units will start to overlap, which means that units will start doing silly things, like wandering sideways in front of the enemy, charging forwards or backwards, etc. And line of sight issues are still a pretty big concern in the game. It can often be very, very hard to tell what your troop can and cannot see. Occasionally you will have your troops standing right in front of an enemy unit, and you're wondering why the fuck aren't they shooting, but in reality they're essentially behind a little hill, so they can't actually see the enemy, yet on the map it looks like they should see them just fine, but since they can't see all of them, they can't shoot at them. And additionally, the ranged meter is a little bit off. Units will be able to fire slightly further than their indicator suggests, so the control schemes could use a little bit of tightening up, but honestly they're relatively minor complaints, and this is a damn good game. It's excessively addictive, and for a perfectionist like myself it's even worse, because I've restarted the Union campaign something like 5 times, because I'm thinking, you know, I could eke out just a little bit more effectiveness of my troops if I did this, or if I did that, etc. For example, I restarted my last campaign simply because I didn't have enough artillery that I felt like I needed, so that was essentially why I restarted. Not for any great reason, I just restarted the entire campaign because I wanted a slightly different gun setup. And I can do that because the campaign is interesting. The AI is constantly doing new things, so you can replay this game a virtually limitless number of times, and the AI will do different things. For example, on one occasion they might focus their primary attacks on your right, on another they might completely ignore your right and go for your left-hand flank. On another occasion they might try to sneak cavalry around your flanks, etc. It's really, really, really good and competent considering. It does have a few hitches here and there, but all in all it is a damn solid effort. So generally speaking, so far, the game seems absolutely fantastic, honestly, but don't take my word for it. If you do want to see some gameplay, do head on over to the Battle of Shiloh video, and I'll go a little bit more in-depth into the game there, and I'll also demonstrate some of the things I've been talking about now. So, I hope to see you there. I've been Arch, thank you very much for watching, and I do hope to see you soon. Have a good day.